10 May 2022. Hi, thanks for tuning in to my official YouTube channel. Please do make sure to subscribe to my official YouTube channel. Go to my website, www.susanmealing.com, and make sure to share the link to my website, www.susanmealing.com, while also sharing the links to my official YouTube channel videos as per the links as to my website, www.susanmealing.com, and make sure that if you're going to leave a comment, to do so with etiquette and respect, please. So, I was listening to a few things which reminded me of my childhood. So I'm going to start off with a few things, even though I've discussed these things, also wrote about these things, and including in my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmealing.com, have brought these situations forward. So back in the year of 1998, I was extremely upset. It was my bon voyage party, also supposedly my sweet 16, and I was infuriated because I did not want to leave New Jersey. I was infuriated because I wanted to attend Marine and Science Technology School with the Navy attachment. I was infuriated. My biological mother, biological father, and the aspects of decided to exclude individuals from Old Tenet Presbyterian Church because they wanted my biological sister to have her whatever as far as that was concerned in comparison. So I had very few individuals who were actually at and in attendance to what was my Sweet 16, though last minute was informed as to a bon voyage party. Infuriated me. I condemned my biological mother and biological father and biological sister on those grounds at Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. Because when I saw how many people actually were arriving, I condemned them permanently. Because I was enraged as to the situation. So I went walking around the grounds. I've discussed this and wrote about this, and I had a personal issue in reference to a few things, and as spiritual and religious as I am, and was back then, I went walking around the grounds, and I knew how to do readings in a different capacity. So I walked around, and for those who know what Old Tenet Presbyterian Church's grounds look as, I was in the area of Neff Chapel, and I had closed my eyes because of the ways of certain things, and I walked, and I walked, and I walked. And I didn't tell anybody I was doing this because it realistically wasn't any of their business. It was a vision quest in a different way. And so I walked and walked. And for those who know those grounds or have seen those grounds, it's very difficult when you think about certain areas as to not having tripped over, stepped on, bumped into, or any capacity of while having my hands like this. Not forgetting how I was in heels at the time. And so I was wearing my confirmation dress. That's what I wore in comparison to getting a new dress, because that's what I dealt with as a child compared to my biological sister. That dress was technically 2.5 years old. That was the dress I wore at my middle school graduation. That was the dress I wore at my Old Tenet Presbyterian Church confirmation graduation, and that was the dress I wore at my Sweet 16 last minute turned bon voyage party. That was the childhood I dealt with and teenage years that I dealt with compared to what my biological sister had. And so while she might not have ever thought about that as to those massively huge differences because of the way she had always been. So in comparison to how selfish and stuck up and snobby she had been, it was as it was. I made it work. And so, but that was how I grew up. And so while other people, and when you take a look at the demographics of Marlborough Township, of Manalapan Township, and of Freehold Township, that was, ironically, being on the grounds, considered as sacrilegious to wear a dress to that many events in comparison because of how distinguishing it had been. And so those particular individuals, as to those particular times, as to those particular needless problems, because of those types of people, this is what I grew up with. And then my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister wonder why I've had issues with them. Well, maybe, just maybe, if they actually treated me as a equal human being in comparison to what I've dealt with, maybe, just maybe, that would be reciprocated instead of what I grew up with. So the facts are in that proof. If they themselves didn't think about it, then they can think about that and accept what the differences had always been. While they might think otherwise, that's the reality. And while at that point in time, their excuse was because of when I was in 5th grade. That was an actual excuse given to me regarding my dress aspects. That's literally what they gave, is thinking that that would be acceptable compared to how my biological sister was in dance. And anybody who knows how dance is and how recitals are each year, that is the difference that I dealt with. Those people have needed to accept who they have been because that is the only way you can actually change. And since they haven't, because in order for them to actually change, they'd actually have to make that conscious decision willfully in comparison. And so they didn't do that. It's very simple to see that. That's how they have been. That's what my childhood in the 1980s into the 1990s was. So while they've tried to claim 5th grade, it's not the facts. The facts are, it's been since the 1980s. I was in 5th grade in 1992. This was occurring in the 1980s. So their wishful thoughts that they could ever excuse it is exactly that. It's a wishful thought and nothing more. And so while I hoped for better for myself, and I had hoped to find a way that I could actually on my own, not having to rely on them, actually being capable to have finances enough, and more so to actually be capable to take care of things in comparison to what I was dealing with. Because I didn't want to provide for my biological sister, ever. I was tired of what I was dealing with already. And that was by the 1990s, before 1998. I was disgusted as to the fact that I had to deal with all these things no matter what, and while their claim in reference to my biological mother and biological father was supposedly family, well, let's be honest on that. Because when you make a choice to treat one child one way and another child a completely different way, do not pretend that you can consider that as family. If you make a genuine effort to actually take care of both children, as in my situation where I've had two children, as equally as possible in comparison to what I have dealt with. That's the facts. And so I went walking around and I had a vision of a hammer and a sickle. Had never seen that before. I actually had to look it up because I hadn't ever seen anything remotely close to this before. And it was weird to me because I couldn't even find anything that was anything like it. As far as all of my spiritual books, going through the libraries that I could get to and stuff, there wasn't anything. I'd go to Barnes and Noble and all these other locations, nothing. I couldn't find anything, which I'm sure is an irony of ironies as to certain other factors. And so my biological mother, similarly to my biological sister, had discussed my bakung and my bakpoo. And I've already clarified and verified those factors. So those problems that occurred in Asher Holmes Elementary School started when my biological sister started running her mouth in kindergarten about that. Not paying attention to anything. And so when I explained things to her, she tried to claim that I was stifling her, when in comparison to her ignorance, that I understood at that time of the age difference. So by the time I was in kindergarten, I understood that. She had no capacity to understand what she was doing, no matter what. It was infuriating, and it still is. Because she doesn't have the slightest bit of actual understanding. Because if she had, the needless problems that occurred in the state of Texas would not have been as such. The reality is, the needless problems in the state of Illinois are the same as the needless problems from New Jersey. So Mike had this saying, if you have certain situations, so on and so forth, it's not them, it's you. Well, it literally is. So each of these needless problems my biological sister had caused, and then had to deal with the after effects because of her needless problems that she stirred up drama for. We're always going to go back to her as far as all of those needless problems. She was always, every time it happened in New Jersey, at Old Tennant Presbyterian Church, she dealt with that. At Asher Holmes Elementary School, she dealt with that. Don't let the situations regarding my biological mother and biological father fool you. We moved from New Jersey for a multitude of reasons. One reason was because my biological sister had been caught so many times, as far as the needless problems she caused. Secondly, we moved from New Jersey because of the fact that I refused to assist my biological mother in prudential any further because of what I was dealing with. Third, we moved, yes, there is the situation as to Baptist Camp Lebanon, as I was informed in certain regards of. Fourth, because I refused to be the stereotype. Fifth, because I refused to be a scapegoat for them. I refused it. And so we moved to Illinois for a few other reasons, but that was it. They were also trying to deter MAST, or Marine and Science Technology School, with the Navy attachment, because they kept coming around, and Mike, Anna, and Patricia tried to claim otherwise, as my neighbor across the street informed me. And so there were certain situations in Illinois where MAST was brought up. And so there were those problems regarding my biological mother, biological father, and biological sister. So then, in reference to the church as well as the school that I didn't want to attend. And one, I didn't have to attend, thankfully. The other, I got out of there as quickly as I could. So there was this Ridgefield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church, or Ricklepick for short. My biological sister got along with the pastor. I did not. My biological sister got along with the Sunday school. I did not. My biological sister got along with the youth group. I did not. They had their opinions. I disagreed with them. They thought certain things were acceptable. I informed them otherwise. There was not just a difference of opinion. There was a refusal. I actually, in the Ridgefield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church, after I think it was the third youth group meeting, I rebuked each and every one of them. And their faces were just, I can't believe you said that to us. I don't care. I'm not interested in any of you. I'm not staying in Illinois. I don't want to have anything to do with this church. It is a disgrace. And for those who know me, mainly in person, face-to-face in person, from especially Texas, specifically San Antonio, Texas, in this reference of supposed to be adult consenting lifestyle community. So you have the reference of Mike and Patty's in 2012. You have a few situations at Temple of Flesh from 2004, 2005, as well as 2009 through 2012. You have Austin, Texas, and San Marcos, Texas from 2010 through 2012. And you have DFW from 2009 through 2012. Most specifically, we're at Pop-Off. And so they, in the state of Texas, did not have where I was straight out of New Jersey. So, so individuals from Ridgefield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church had dealt with me being straight out of New Jersey for less than 3 months, as far as how that went. And they were very sad when I had said my opinion, extremely unfilteredly. There was absolutely no filter whatsoever as far as what I had to say. And I didn't care at all. I didn't even turn 16 years old yet. So you can take that additionally into consideration, because you got to remember the 5 boroughs in New York City with Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Because those people in Illinois only paid attention to the New Jersey part. They didn't pay attention to the tri-state area, which I told them that I don't know where they got their references from, but they didn't understand who I actually am. And so they tried to, I know how people are from New Jersey. You're missing the fact that I grew up going to the 5 boroughs. This is an important situation. You need to remember, yeah, sure, I was born and raised in New Jersey, but I grew up going to the 5 boroughs at the same time. Like all 5 boroughs. I mean, also New York State and other areas, but like the 5 boroughs. Like, have you heard of Brooklyn? Have you heard of the Bronx? Have you heard of Queens? Have you heard of Manhattan? Have you heard of Harlem? And they were, well, what does that have to do with anything regarding New Jersey? A lot. In reference to me. When we were out in the outside area in comparison, because there were obviously more than one discussion. So those types, as far as their wish that I would actually care, it really was. Because of course my biological sister had to run her mouth. She went and talked about my buck poo, my buck gong, as well as me being the original baby Jesus Christ. She had to go run her mouth and do nothing different than what she did as far as Asher Holmes Elementary School and Old Tenant Presbyterian Church and all that stuff as far as the middle school she went to, or whatever it was, elementary school, I don't know, and then the church as far as Ricklepick. And if she had not done that, it would have been easier. But because she had to be herself, it was as it was. She also did this at the dance school she went to. And so just one after the other. And so I would guesstimate her bond with Pastor Kim is because of the Asian aspect in comparison. And so, those particular additional factors. I, on the other hand, because he tried to actually use that. He tried to be, I'm Korean, whoop-de-doo, I don't care. If just because you have an Asian background, I don't care. That doesn't automatically translate to me the same way. So those types of people that do that to other people and then they do that to themselves, where they put themselves into these little categories in comparison to just being themselves, is different, is annoying to me personally. And so, he tried using the Asian card, and he's like, I heard you have a buck gong and a buck goo. Yeah, what is it to you? I don't care. I didn't even give him the chance to actually answer, because it was just one of those, I don't care. I know I don't look Asian. And so he tried to, oh no, I can see it in your eyes. I wasn't even looking at him. Don't lie to me on church grounds. And there are those who I've met in person, face to face in person, and they would know if they've ever said anything to me about the Chinese or Asian features and exactly how I am to respond on that. And so it just wasn't a church that I was interested in. It wasn't that it couldn't be good for somebody else. It's just one of those, you have to accept sometimes that some churches just aren't for everybody. That's just something that has been needed to understand. Same thing with temples and synagogues. It's one of those, when you stir up needless drama, that sort of stuff is realistically ridiculous. So, and then there's the needless pressures when you try to make the congregants do something to be an official whatever, where certain people just don't move that swiftly. Some people actually prefer to take their time. If they have certain background or certain comfort level, then it is what it is. If not, just accept the fact that you can have the appreciation there. And so I've had this situation many times since. And it is one of those situations where I understand in regards of the tax issue, but see, that's kind of the thing. You need to actually, you wonder why certain people have certain viewpoints. Well, when you go and do certain things, and it's only because of the taxes, in comparison to actually just enjoying your work, if you are doing, I understand that, those particular factors. However, then you go and petition through the elected officials for something different as far as reformation. Because it is one of those situations in reference to some people just take their time. Additionally, as to other factors, that it is what it is. Sometimes, there are certain situations, and I've seen this even in what's supposed to be considered the adult consenting lifestyle, where certain people have issues and I've dealt with this I can speak from my own biases, where because of other people's opinion as to how things are supposed to go. No, I'm not going to force myself into a situation that I don't feel comfortable in. I don't care what your opinion is. I'm going to do things at my pace. It is supposed to be a consensual adult lifestyle. It is not supposed to be where you don't like that a female is doing whatever, and instead of being actually proud of the fact that instead of being so weak all the time, because those types of females that do needless drama because how dare you walk alone or whatever, that's a problem. You're not a feminist, you're a feminazi for that. And then you wonder why other people don't want to deal with certain things. Because if females were actually more inviting, or I should say women and whatever, I don't even know what to call them at some points. Because it is realistically one of those situations. Someone who is capable to stand on their own is realistically much stronger than some may realize. And those types that want to try to push in that regard, in comparison, don't push your weaknesses on another individual who doesn't actually need certain factors. If there is not the comfort level because of certain other situations, you might think that you can do the little matchmaking situation in comparison to what actually is ideal. That's something that other problems have been in a very different capacity. Because that is a different annoyance in so many ways. Because why would you ever think that that would be acceptable? The answer for this lecture is it's not. If a female is capable to stand on her own, defend herself and her stance, the realistic aspects, especially with certain types of individuals, you have to just accept the strength and fortitude of that type of a female in comparison to any such needless drama or needless problems, because you want to poke, and you don't like the fact of the truth of the matter. That if it wasn't for the needless drama, realistically, you know for a fact you couldn't handle it anyway. That's why you stir up needless drama. Because only weak people do that, in my opinion. Only people who are weak-minded, weak in spirit, and incapable of actually accomplishing certain things would be so weak as to doing that needlessly. Because while they could try to claim that they need to, the reality is they don't need to. The reality is they desire something else. And that's not their right to choose. So when those types of weak individuals have needed to understand that it's not that simple for certain people, if you try forcing, you are not as strong. You actually show in the larger amount of numbers your weakness. It's not as much as certain people might think. I've dealt with this for decades, as far as different groups, different organizations, so on and so forth, in comparison to ever having the common sense to ever think that, you know what, I understand, misery loves company. No, thank you. I don't need that. Thanks. If I have company, I actually want to enjoy myself. Thank you. I don't have to go to another location to deal with that. So, I prefer to actually enjoy my life, and even though I haven't had certain situations, it is one of those, maybe you need to recalibrate yourself in comparison. Because maybe if you recalibrated yourself, you wouldn't feel that need. Because that's where needless drama stirs up from people who are just miserable, and they're too weak to acknowledge it. Because they want that company so that way they can convince themselves otherwise, when realistically they've needed to face the facts as to. So it's not really a strength in that reference, it's a weakness. Because if you're truthfully that miserable, well, that's your issue. Marriage is not supposed to be that way, despite what some people might think. And so when you have that particular viewpoint, it realistically is that misery loves company. No, that's been the problem for a while as to those types. You see it in the divorce rates. You see it in the cheating problems. You see it in those capacities. And just because I've been a part of the what is supposed to be consenting adult lifestyle, I actually don't consent to certain things because of the mandatory aspects. It's not a free will or a free game sort of thing. It is a discussion that occurs beforehand. If you think that I'm going to be in a relationship and you're just going to go and do whatever you want and no. If you don't discuss with me in person, face to face in person, you got another thing coming as far as how that actually goes. Because if you have no actual understanding as to how that is, and you go and assume, well, you're going to assume a lot of problems for yourself. Because if you don't actually pay attention to the reality of situations, that's been a problem in what is supposed to be the consenting adult lifestyle. Well, that consenting has to be actual informed consent. Both individuals actually have to have that discussion. And if they don't have that discussion, you don't know a damn thing, because every swinger is not the same. Every pansexual is not the same. Every polyamorous person is not the same. So those types of people, as to how they assume, well, maybe you wouldn't be so miserable if you didn't assume so much when it comes to relationships. Which, as to the situations regarding Ricklepick or Ridgefield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church, I didn't want to hear this youth group discussing certain things. I didn't want to hear a pastor whose biological age as to whatever discussing stuff with. I didn't want to have anything to do with it. Just because I had certain classes in school, in actual Asher Holmes Elementary School, in Barbaro Middle School, that's different. Very different. It was by the gender in comparison to an open whatever. And while there were later in some aspects where there was some discussion as to the co-ed portions, there was not the same as to certain types of situations regarding those people. And so my biological mother tried to tell me that all Presbyterian churches were the same. I informed her, absolutely not. First and foremost, there is obviously a massively huge difference between Ridgefield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church and Old Tenet Presbyterian Church. Can't you see that? Fast forward to after when I woke up from my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, that dumb bitch, excuse my language, actually tried to tell me that all churches were the same. I went to an evangelical church. I had never seen anything like that. People started jumping up and down. I'm accustomed to traditional actual services where people have discussions. I couldn't get out of that church quick enough. It's not in any offense. It's just certain types of certain situations as to what is personally comfortable. And so I lit in to my biological mother about that. And she tried to claim that all of them were the same. No, they're not. I don't know how you can't tell that difference. I don't know, maybe it's because of my confirmation class, where we actually learned the historical background of churches, where it started with what is considered as shamanism. And over time, it developed into philosophical discussions and debates. And then it developed into Toric aspects regarding the Jewish individuals. Then it developed further as to other branches and divisions. Then it went into what is considered Christianity. And then it developed to the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Then it developed to Martin Lutheranism and Calvinism, and I know I've probably got them out of order, but it is what it is. And then it's the Protestantism, the Methodism, and all these others. So it broke down in regards of various denominations, one after the other, after the other, after the other, and these various congregations of. So, same thing with certain things in reference. Now, Confucianism is more philosophical, though there are certain religious aspects. Taoism is similar in certain regards of philosophical references, but certain spiritual references as well. You've got Buddhism in those capacities where it is a philosophical, though yet certain religious aspects. You have Native American, which is different than shamanic. And so I actually went an in-depth study, not just going to Old Tenet Presbyterian Church regarding the confirmation class. I was attending St. John Vianney High School and going through religious classes. Then I was additionally going to libraries, and then there was Barnes & Noble. And yes, I said libraries, as in multiple libraries. And so it was one thing after the other. Then I learned about paganism, and the irony is, in some ways, some shamanic, some Native American, some sort of, I don't know what, in certain references. And it's one of those, so we're just going around in a circle regarding the particular religious aspects in comparison to progressing forward. Okay, and this is what I figured out in 1996. This is what I actually figured out then. And it's like, okay, I understand that this is up to each individual. There are certain things that are across all borders and across all lines. However, you have to have the capacity to actually bring forward these references, so that way there is a central point, not in the same ways in certain references, but yet at the same time, yes, where the aspects of what is considered as a sermon speaks to the hearts of everybody. And while some might not like the verbiage or the reference of, there is the capacity to actually have a genuine contemplation instead, where there are certain situations, whatever scriptural aspects you look into, and then you evaluate for yourself as to what is for the highest good, not just in regards of yourself, but in a larger capacity. But it has to be truthful. It cannot be biased. Because if it is biased, it is not for the highest good of all humanity or humankind, however you choose to view it. So when you have those aspects where you try to claim that it's for the good of these people, no. You have to be inclusive, not exclusive. Huge difference. And so, yes, there are the varying parables, different types of pastors, rabbis, priests, so on and so forth, monks, monasteries, as far as nunneries, and so on and so forth, all of these different ones. And yet at the same time, if you don't take that actual food for thought proverbial stories, metaphorical stories, alignments to different situations that you actually, despite the actualities of, the capability to see certain things, review them as to the situations. It is a common sense factor. And while some individuals have had whichever opinions they've had, it's the reality. And so this is something that I've been dealing with for a very long time, not just 1996. I had questioned rabbis that would attend Old Tenet Presbyterian Church at Neff Chapel, at Old Scots Hall. I would actually ask multiple questions, nothing new as far as Sunday school either. And so the difference was usually the rabbis were far more willing to discuss situations with me, far more, especially the spouses as well, because there were certain situations. And while other people have had their opinions, that's the other thing. You don't have a right, I don't care who you are, you actually don't have a right to infringe on my rights at all, whatsoever. It doesn't matter who you are. I don't care what your religious belief is. You don't actually have the right. That's why there are different sects. So it doesn't matter what your opinion is. That's your opinion. Go to your congregation. But don't be intruding on other people. So there's those Westboro Baptist types. I took a stand against those. Because there was the Patriot rioters as far as 2008, despite certain situations. And it's one of those, your types that go and do that are problematic. If you don't like the fact of being called out, because don't pretend the Judeo-Christian aspect. Because if you go and do things on purpose in those capacities, there is a huge difference in regards of how I do not go anywhere to purposefully cause problems in comparison to those types. That's been a problem for far longer. I wonder how many come out of the Baptist type that have caused a bunch of situations. Personally, I'm not a Baptist. Though I did go to Baptist Camp Lebanon, and there were situations that didn't go well. There's my Reiki master teacher, and he was a Baptist pastor. And while we got along in some ways, we disagreed in other ways, which I was not willing to tolerate certain factors. And so there's other situations, which is my right to choose in comparison, because there were those situations, and on and on and on. So it's one of those, if you are in a certain capacity, I don't really care about your opinion unless I ask for it. If I don't ask for your opinion, why is it that people have this sensation of a feeling that they have a right to when they don't? It's not a freedom of expression of yours, believe it or not, because it has to be in truth. So if you're not stating your opinion is, or your feeling is, or your bias is, and you don't do that in that aspect of, then are you speaking in truth? Because if it's just whatever comment, see, this is etiquette and respect. So if you don't have something that actually explains it, that's a situation of communication. And so with these shortened particular aspects in comparison to longer, and the capacity to actually have discussions, well, people who get tired of reading stuff online, then what is the situation regarding that? Because then you have to take in consideration what brain activity do you actually have occurring? And remember, I had a head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. I had a subarachnoid hemorrhage in the frontal lobe of my brain that took 8.5 years to dissipate. I deal with headaches and migraines. I deal with memory deficits. I deal with cognitive disorders. And I went from college algebra with trigonometry and calculus to second grade math. And so those particular situations where I haven't been capable to understand that, because why? Is it because you're so accustomed to watching something online in comparison? Is it because you're more accustomed to watching a television or a movie screen or a tablet screen or what have you in comparison to reading a book? Is that the problem? Is it that you actually have to set a day where you only do one aspect and then set another day? Does it actually have to come to that point, or do you have to set it by hours as to that because of the vision? I noticed this back in the 1980s when it came to the screens, and people made fun of me for certain things, and it's like, I don't think you understand what it's doing, especially with as spiritual as I am. And so there was a huge problem with the optometry individual. She tried to argue with me about certain things, and I made attempts to explain certain religious and spiritual aspects, and then I made attempts to explain regarding how actual technology worked. And so then this optometrist went, or whatever vision checker person that shows up to the elementary schools, then she tried claiming that I didn't know where certain things were because of whatever, there was a little dot, something another. And it was one of those, you know, you might want to actually specify to someone whose biological mother works at Prudential and does information technology coding. You know, not to be rude or anything, but maybe you want to specify what dot you mean, because if you actually knew anything about how to actually look at a picture, you know, there's these things called color dots, and they're called pixels, if you haven't heard of this. So if you want to claim that, there was a show. We did not get along at all as far as that into it, because it was one of those, it's common sense. Then it's a lit up screen. It was literally one of those, okay, you literally know it's like a projection in comparison, and you want me to, well, you want to be more specific? You're going to have a picture of a rainbow damn air balloon crap? You want to be a smidgen more specific as far as a color? Oh, wait, it's a rainbow hot air balloon. Maybe you might want to be a little bit more specific to someone who's growing up with a biological mother who goes to old dead Presbyterian church and all that spiritual stuff, on top of the whole fact of the reference to Prudential. You know, and so this female, you know, you have an attitude, and I'm telling her it's one of those, no, I don't think you understand. If you actually knew anything about technology, oh, I'm an optometrist. Yeah, what does that have to do when you're not even knowing what you're looking at? And so it was what it was. Yeah, and for those who know about the cafeteria table, guess what happened to that table? Yeah, I got in trouble for that. I got in trouble, and I think that was like 3rd or 4th grade. I was a little angry. It's kind of ironic. Later, I learned that my biological mother's stepsister or half-sister, she's an optometrist, is an irony of ironies. And it was one of those, yeah, no, this is great. Like, can you not do your sibling rivalry as far as that? Like, can you not be that way? Can you actually lead? But, you know, you want to say that you're mature. Can you actually do so? Do you know how to do this? Whatever, I'm just saying, maybe, just maybe if you weren't, like Patricia, in regards to the half aspects, maybe, just maybe if you weren't such pretentious, just hypothetically in those references regarding those situations, as far as those sibling mental health issues. Those types where it's like, okay, if you can either agree to disagree and just leave each other alone, like go live your own life instead, go move on instead, stop doing that sort, like just seriously. And my biological mother is like, oh, we're gonna move to Illinois and we can get along. No, where would you think that because especially I met Chris once. I met Edie once, and I met Yvonne, which, she was in New York State, and it's one of those, so you want to, this was one of Anna's aspects where she was like, yeah, no, we can move, and we'll all just get along. Yeah, it'll be great. And it's like, I don't think so. I don't know. Rose-colored glasses much? And no, we'll get along, it'll be great, all of us are just we're all gonna get along. And it's like, I don't think so. I do not understand where this is coming from. What is this? And so we moved to Illinois. And it's like, I know you want to be accepted. I do. I understand this. You have to accept yourself first before you can be accepted by others, because otherwise, like if you're not sure of who you are, you kind of have those issues. That's how that goes, so you have to kind of figure out yourself instead. And in comparison, because then there's all those situations in Illinois, which I had informed them it was not going to work out. I warned them about Edie and Mark. I warned them as far as Allie, especially Allie was Patricia's age. I warned about that. I warned about Kate. I warned about the area, and I was very upset that it was not near Chicago. Because then there's that. Because Ridgefield Crystal Lake Presbyterian Church, as well as Crystal Lake South, they thought that I was being pretentious regarding Chicago. And it was one of those, no, I actually would do better in Chicago, thank you very much. Because most people in areas of certain types, unless it's a real thing, like for the most part, it's really not an issue. It's one of those, everybody deals with certain things, and yeah, it's a little bit rare, but for the most part, it's just one of those, it's whatever, because everybody's doing this sort of whatever to work on themselves to get ahead. And, as long as you don't cause any needless drama, like certain types of situations where democratic policies all of a sudden start creeping in, as long as you don't do that, those sort of, but as soon as that stuff occurs, it's one of those, that's where it goes, each and every time. It's always in the college towns, always where it starts, because you've got these college students, this is my opinion, you get these college students that move in. It's not necessarily the elementary school or the middle school or the high school. No, it's the college students, where all of these others come from towns that don't have colleges. And then, and okay, they haven't had the education because of certain whatever, and it's one of those, but don't make it like, why do you have to do this so much? Because it's the rest of the state. So, as long as you just keep your stuff to yourself and you just handle your business as far as, like, it was, so here's an example. I have a huge issue on this one. So my biological mother goes and says, you should be a cheerleader so you can have female friends. Again, I'm going to repeat this. My biological mother, for those of you who have been cheerleaders, my biological mother said, for you to have female friends, go be a cheerleader. Anybody been a cheerleader that understands where that's a little bit of a Anybody who hasn't been a cheerleader know about certain things about a Sure, sometimes there are, but let's be honest on the real on that. Yeah, okay. Then she says, you know what? I think for you to have female friends, you should be in a beauty pageant. I don't know how that, I can't be the, this is what, no, first and foremost, don't, because at that point it's one of those, do not pretend you want me to have female friends doing that. Been in Illinois less than 6-9 months, maybe 10 months. And you want, what is wrong with you? And that like, no. And then, you know, so then fine, I already told her I wasn't good, I knew exactly how I was gonna go. And she tried to claim otherwise, and it's like, no, I know exactly how it's gonna be. And so it went exactly as I knew it was. However, there was this point in time where we went up to Chicago, and that was the only part of the beauty pageant thing that I was happy about. That was literally the only part. I mean, I got to meet some people, that was cool, but and I did like the car company, that was cool. But the area that it's like, yes, I can finally have fun and some reference. We went to some botanical garden area and that whole thing, and then we walked around Chicago for a few things, and then I realized, so all of these little, and so anybody who's been to the 5 boroughs, you know what I'm talking about. Anybody from New Jersey, you know what I'm talking about. So these, at the demographic time was like population of 10,000. We're gonna go to Chicago, this is gonna be great. No, all right, okay. And so in order to prevent certain issues, you know, it's like, okay, and, oh look, what is that? No. Let's go this way, come on. Let's go this way. Let's go this way. Yeah, no. So then we go on the Michigan Mile. Yeah, Then there's one of the teachers from Crystal Lake South, and she's like, oh, you know, she goes and starts critiquing, and it's like, or, you know, just trying the clothing on instead, maybe you can not be that way. I think she was the interior design or whatever, and it's like, if you actually had anything worthwhile, you probably wouldn't be teaching at Crystal Lake South. Not to be rude in certain references, if you were actually worth your weight, you probably could go somewhere else instead of trying to critique somebody who was born and raised in New Jersey. Because she actually had her commentary about a dress which I knew was too small, but because I wanted to look at it in a different capacity, it's like, if I asked for your opinion, you'd hear me use the words asking for your opinion. And yeah, she didn't really like that. I didn't really care. See a theme? And so... But it was one of those, you don't even know what I'm doing, so why don't you just leave me alone? And so, and I actually told her this, I can't remember what store it was, and she said, oh, I know exactly what you're doing. And I said, what am I doing? And she said that she thought that I was trying on the dress for the pageant, and I said no. I'm looking at the coloration and the cut in comparison to the way the fabric flows for a different thing in another particular aspect of time. Because I can see certain things now in this particular pattern of clothing that can be utilized at a different time frame. So thanks for thinking that you assume you know who I am, however you don't. Don't ever assume you know me. And she tried to claim, oh, whatever, you're gonna get, and I didn't purchase a dress there. And so it was just a continuous, needless thing with those types. And it's like, maybe she could sense I was a beard before, because I know that there's certain issues which I know the LGBTQP understands. And so maybe she could sense that I've been a beard because, well, mainly because they're just, and then I had taken a stand when it came to another. It's like, oh, you think you're his girlfriend? No, where I come from, we call that a beard. Oh, you think that you're gonna, oh, no, we call that a beard. Either that or you're a hag, one or the other. Because you're one of the other. You're either a beard, a friend, or a hag. Pick one. Because if you are a hag, you're a dime a dozen. That's just how that goes. And usually the hags just stir up a bunch of needless problems because you want to feel special. And in comparison to beards or just, yeah, sure, until the realization of whatever, yeah, that's fine, sure, if not, it is what it is. And then the other capacities of, okay, just a friend, and that is what it is. And so, I've had people that have tried to claim certain things as far as little hinting aspects, and it's like, yeah, no, I am who I am because I am who I am. If you knew the scientific backgrounds as far as what I was born and raised growing up around, I don't care that I'm capable to explain certain things in writing. And there's other factors because of the difference between males doing certain things and females, because if they weren't so lazy in certain references, then maybe it'd be actually visually appealing. However, since so many males are so wasteful and they haven't ever done anything in regards of certain videos that have ever actually been something that I've wanted to see, maybe, just maybe, there's only one aspect of those particulars, and I cannot see certain other things. Because unlike some people, I actually pay attention, and so those particular types of individuals have been such an annoyance as far as their assumptions in those references. So it's one of those, yeah, no, you have to actually enjoy it, and I can tell. Because if you just don't understand that, you just don't understand that. I've always been capable to tell. So if you just don't meet certain requirements, just accept the fact that you're not good enough. And that's the reality, because certain types are certain types. Yeah, it's those facts. It just is as it is. It really is. And so this goes to the pansexuality aspect where, yeah, if I want to see something, that's kind of because of the actual level of when males are so lazy that they haven't actually done certain things, that they actually have to have a manual written for them, and then they look at it as a novelty in comparison to actually doing it correctly. It's one of those, I don't have patience for those types. Because if you think you're being cute, no, you're not. If you think you're this, no, you're not. If you think you're that, no, you're not. You actually have to earn a multitude of multifaceted aspects. If you don't, I don't care. I've been taking care of myself long before I ever met you, most likely. And if you don't know how to do certain things, I don't care. Yeah, no. You might go by what Mike thinks is as far as that's concerned. I'm letting you know otherwise. Yeah, just think of that as a cherry on top of the cupcake in comparison. And how do you eat a damn cupcake, moron? Good morning, sunshine. All right, so it's one of those, I've had an issue with certain types, and so, yeah, my numbers are low because of how pathetic certain males have just simply been. I have no problem being more masculine in that regard, where it's like, and you can go. because I don't care about your feelings. So you can take my teenage years in that particular reference of, yeah, no, I'm not interested in what you're doing. I'm not interested in what you're doing. I'm not interested in talking about that. I have my personal what have you, and I don't care what your opinion is. So if you don't meet my minimal requirements, bye. I already know what type you are, and I don't care. Yeah, bye. And so again, it goes back to that. I didn't even need the lectures from my biological father when it came to certain things as a teenager. It's like, yeah, okay, so I know that I want to keep myself clean and clear. I also don't want to deal with certain other things. And because I am as I am, if I'm not taken care of in the correct way, you're going to know it. And, I'm not going into that. So yeah, I'm going to go take care of my career. And I will make sure I get my career taken care of, but I have my specifics. And if certain situations aren't met to my standards, then I will continue going to work as I need to do. And it is what it is. I don't care about your feelings at all. And so these religious aspects, as far as other situations where it's one of those, hey, no, I don't want to see somebody else in certain references. You're whatever, well, good for you. I don't really care. It's not that I don't, whatever. I just don't need to see that. It's realistically not something that actually does something for me in a positive way when you really think about it. And so there's a few other factors in particular references of, but those religious situations, if you actually know the history of the Oracle of Delphi, as far as other individuals who have been annoying, as far as how they had tried to interject themselves in comparison to ever doing things correctly, being annoying in reference to how many caused a bunch of needless problems, both male and female. And so all that occurred were these needless problems from individuals who needed to have patience in comparison to assuming they knew a damn thing as to what the actual discussion was going to be about when she had given sermons as a modern day equivalent. And so when other people in these particular references where Delphi had to lay the hammer down and, proverbially smash a few things so that way they understood the difference. Because there were too many females that thought that they were special, and because there wasn't the aspects of the reality for those females, it had to be other situations. When it came to other males, causing just as many needless problems because they thought much higher of much lower individuals than they ever were, there were those problems regarding Delphi. And so then there were other situations, and in the modern era, where you have those types of individuals who have been problematic over the decades as to pop culture types, where they haven't had the common sense, courtesy, or etiquette to ever take in consideration as to the needless problems that they have stirred up. And then they wonder why certain needless problem types of those individuals don't want to be involved. Because other people don't do what the minimum requirement is, because they don't even think to ask. Because what would it be to actually be asked? In comparison to the stalking, the harassment, all those needless problems, because that doesn't show appreciation at all. Especially when it's been put specific to. So when those types think that they have a right to something that they don't, and they cause annoying problems because they think they mean more than they do to someone else. Because when doing certain types of garbage, that's not showing appreciation at all, in any way, shape, or form. And so this situation as far as Rickle Pick and those needless problems regarding how those people needed to accept the fact that I didn't ever feel comfortable with them. I didn't ever want to have anything to do with them. And just because my biological sister did, that's not me. I'm not my biological sister. Don't care what she did to you. That's her stuff, for you to deal with her and not me. Do not blame me for what my biological sister did. Do not blame me for what my biological mother did. Do not blame me for what my biological father did. Do not blame me for what other people did. It goes back, literally, to the Ronald Reagan quote. Go blame the individual who actually did in comparison to who didn't. Just accept those facts. And when someone doesn't want to be a part of something, don't annoy them. Because it's not considered attractive. It's not considered as wanted in a positive way at all. Because you have to actually do things as to what would actually be considered as in comparison to your interpretations. Because that's the problem with other people as far as what they think because of their interpretations in comparison. And so when they interpret compared to actually speaking with in genuine truth and honesty. So I'm in the middle of a journal blog as far as this particular official YouTube video is concerned. And those types of needless problems. No, that's not a way in which I would ever have the sensation of being wanted in a positive way. Ever. I don't care what some people interpret as what they would think. Because what I would actually interpret, and actually most importantly, sense as to being wanted in a positive way, as to actual genuine care and genuine concern, well, there are specifics. And if you don't meet those specifics by the most simple starting point, speaking with in truth, genuinely. Actually asking instead of assuming. Because that has always been a problem for me. When everybody else has assumed because they heard from someone or they saw something or whatever in comparison. That has, in that original journal blog of mine, the Ornery PSA, in reference to www.susanmeling.com, when it comes to that particular unwanted artist journal blog, as far as my opinions regarding my viewpoints, as to my sensations, because not one individual has ever had the common sense to just ask me. Because it has been so unwanted to actually have the common sense to speak with me in truth honestly. for as many people claiming to be creative and their artistic what have yous. The most unwanted aspect in the most simple of ways. Actual communication instead of what I have dealt with. Because of those types of people, such as my biological mother, biological father, biological sister, ex-in-laws, and those particular situations, that has been such an annoyance. And then there's the ones with the pop culture and all that stuff in comparison to just having an actual discussion in genuine truth. And the annoyance is from because why would there ever be a view of? So here's an example regarding later on. I was picking up these weird energetic situations in Club Sapphire when I was volunteering. And instead of anybody speaking with me in truth, as I was picking up this energy, a culmination of the modern day book, you can take that in consideration as to each and every one of you. Because realistically, those are the facts. With the updates in reference to my journal blog, The Ornery PSA, on my website, www.susanmealing.com. So fast forward but rewind regarding to. So in the year of 2006, I've explained and written about the garage situation. And nobody listened when it was pertinent. Nobody did anything that was actually assistive for me. So, do you see a similar pattern of behavior? Have you learned yet? Before this lecture or in this lecture? Or not? I have the answer to that. Because if it was learned from, this situation wouldn't be as it is now. So, explain to multiple people, one after the other, after the other, after the other, don't want to be in the situation. Make multiple attempts as to getting assistance. Would you actually point me in the correct direction? Could you actually think instead? So I've gone on as far as how I wound up off of a military installation twice. First time regarding the rave in Brackenridge. Second time in reference to the end of the year of 2000. Go and tell all sorts of individuals. Not one person has common damn sense. And apparently, whatever needless problems regarding those arrogant Illinoisans and or New Jerseyans and or my ex-in-laws at this point in time in comparison to actually making the correct choice. As to accepting responsibility for your choices and your behaviors. So then there's the garage situation after the first separation. Brother in arms, my dead ex-husband, to the garage situation. Cactus Jack, also known as Jeffrey Kirkendall Jr., my biological mother and biological father, thought he was great. Thought he was like Baby Huey and all that sort of stuff, and that was their viewpoint. Thought he was fantastic. Brother in arms to my dead ex-husband. They got a lot, remember, garage. What do people do instead? Throughout the city of San Antonio, do they do anything correctly for me? At any point, still, no, the answer is for this lecture, no. United States of America? No, I haven't gotten that one correct on that. Hey, what would be the situation regarding the dress blues? So then there was this situation where I noticed this thing, and it's like, why does this look familiar? Well, in the year 2022, on the 10th of May, I realized, that's that. I don't really know what that's for, though. I have no idea. I've been trying to figure this out, and then I had a head injury. And then, all these other factors of what needless problems from a male I didn't ever want to be with. That I made it abundantly clear. The situations in reference to the garbage that I was dealing with. Seriously, when it comes to the Kirkendall aspect. And then as far as having explained certain things, then there's the Excalibur Fair. Do you understand that people take this seriously? And he didn't see a big deal as to the World War II reenacting. He didn't see a big deal in that. He didn't see a big deal in reference to any other, I don't know what they are, but I recognize that and it was okay, so I need assistance. Can somebody actually do something worthwhile for once for me? Correctly. Instead of assuming. Here's the big thing. Actually ask me. Yeah, that'd be actually great to actually have that. Instead, I don't actually write for my health. I write because I'm actually journaling. It's a journal blog. Has anybody heard of this before? Is this a new idea in the year of 2015 when I put it together? Or is this something new? So, I get rid of him as soon as I can. Because there's a lot, and it's not out of convenience, it's literally like, there was no one who was assisting me in person, face to face in person. My biological mother, biological father, biological sister. Nope, they would have to have common damn sense. As far as my ex-in-laws, they were told specifically, but no different to 2000. What level of lack of common sense in regard to the state of Texas? Then there's the Carrollton, Texas situation, McCoy Elementary School, International Scuba. Does any of you people, for as many people who told me you got a college degree, can you wake up then? What part of that haven't you woken up to? You know that other countries aren't getting technology until down the line. You think it's a good idea to go do this reenactment garbage. You have your pop culture that you're not taking into consideration. I've gone on this for decades. And what needless problems? Over and over and over again. You don't see this. Why not? Back in the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s, 2010s, now it's 2022. These in the state of Texas, why would you pay attention? Do you think it's a game? It's not a game to some people. So there's the Mad Max 151 Road Warrior Alamo Draft House Fiesta Texas situation. Do you understand how that's the wrong answer? Now, sure, fine, it could be a good, but like, to me, do you understand how that's not a good answer to me? You know, like that game stuff, I'm not interested in games. So if that's a code to that, well, that doesn't assist me. At all. Whatsoever. It's common sense. It really is. It really is. What happens in scuba diving? All that garbage. Instead of common sense. Yeah, no. Decades of this crap is what it is. Decades of it. Decades. And so now you got the formation of the U.S. Space Force. After NASA's been around for a while. Yeah. Why would I ever bother speaking with any of you people in person, face to face in person, if you don't speak with me in truth? Huh? You ever think about that? With your needless games, as needless problems, journal blog update 2019. You might think that if I'm accurate regarding individuals having shown up, you might think and interpret that that would be something I'd prefer. Well, if you would think that, don't you think that we should actually communicate? Or were you expecting me to see you and remember you on sight, knowing the after effects of my head injury? In a different area? Or was it that you were just rubbing salt in a wound? Because you know, what's maturity? What's individuals who don't stir up needless drama? What is it? We're biological adults that are supposed to be at an adult social club actually don't play games unless they go to a damn arcade or game store in comparison. This is just because of a theme event. Do you think that that might not work for certain people and they just wear outfits in comparison? Or haven't you thought about that? So if you, in any hypothetical, could have actually spoken with me in truth, face to face in person in truth, and instead you stirred up needless drama because you could have actually had it because you wanted to do some artistic rendition, in comparison, why would I view that as problematic? Would that be any different than prior years as to what I stood against? Because if it would, as per this lecture, then there goes into that. As far as the Americans with Disabilities Act, and so you know about the after effects of my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000, and you know that the situations I deal with. So, and have dealt with. What is humanity? I don't know. I truthfully don't. I know what it is to treat people humanely. But having that for myself in comparison, well, I guess with the merger that's coming up, it'll be capable to be proven. You know? Oh wait, I stopped in the state of Texas, clarifying and verifying so that way I could go take care of other stuff, such as where I'm born and raised. In comparison to how Ricklepick and Crystal Lake South wanted to try to whatever in certain references, in comparison to where I was born and raised. How they thought whatever they thought in comparison to where I was born and raised. So then there's that 10-year reunion for high school. I don't know who would be so arrogant to ever think that I would ever go to that 10-year reunion before going to my home state. After what occurred. I don't know who would ever be ignorant enough to actually think that would actually not remember that I was born and raised in New Jersey. So if there was that, I don't care if it was Ricklepick, I don't care if it was Crystal Lake South, I don't care. As far as who the possibilities are. Not in any offense. But I don't care. That would be the last place I would ever want to go to before where I was born and raised. Because if the assumption was, in any capacity, that it would be some other viewpoint, as to the 10-year from high school, compared to the knowledge that I was born and raised in New Jersey, well, I guess you didn't know how people are from New Jersey, now did you? Because where I was born and raised, it's the Tri-Township, or 3 different townships, that have the largest commuters to the World Trade Center. And the World Trade Center Plaza, as well as the 5 boroughs of New York City, which I grew up going to. So for as many people who have whatever as far as opinions of loyalty, my loyalty is to New Jersey. My loyalty is to the East Coast. Yes, I can have loyalty in a multifaceted way. However, where I was born and raised, that's where I was born and raised. So while my biological mother and or biological father and or biological sister may have most likely stirred up a bunch of needless drama, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. Other people, that's their choices. I don't need, nor do I want, nor do I desire, nor do I prefer any of that whatsoever regarding any type of needless drama. Not something I enjoy at all. And so if there were those, whatever opinions of, I don't care in reference to my home area, if you prevented any situations regarding me getting back to the East Coast, we'll talk about being an unwanted artist regarding my journal blog in a different capacity. Because why would you want me to assist where I was born and raised? I mean, unless that would be something that would be wanted in a positive way.
But you know, since it took 20 years, technically 22 years, to get to the area of New Jersey, to a spot that I would recognize specifically. Took 22 years. All of those people who decided whatever they decided, as far as your opinions, your feelings, whatever, you showed me as to how unwanted, as to what I would need for myself, as well as others. Show me that you wouldn't actually want me as to who I am. Because where you could just speak with me, get a meeting going, something of that capacity of where you actually just speak with me in truth. I'm not the smartest crayon in the toolbox. I've made attempts, and I haven't hit it. That's the other thing. If other people have been doing that, well, keep that in mind. When you hide information because you think your opinion means something, excuse you, what needless problems are you causing in other areas of technology when you don't pay attention to that? So if my biological mother and or biological father and or biological sister caused any needless drama to any technology devices, which I know they did, that has needed to stop for each and every type of those people. You cost my son, my daughter, and I our time as a family. Don't blame me when other people didn't listen to my warnings. Do not hold me accountable where other people didn't want to fucking pay attention. Go blame them. Don't blame me though. At all. Do not hold me accountable for what is not my fault. Because when you do that, then additionally, what is worth it in life? It is not my fault when it comes to quite a few situations. At all. Those types of people who have needed to come to that acceptance are exactly that. So my biological mother knows the individuals as far as the needless drama she started. And if she had just told the truth, I wouldn't have had to deal with certain things. You know, prudential. No. Why would that matter? I'm not an insurance plan, I'm a human being. So, you know. But what would ever be wanted in a positive way, as per my viewpoint, not others' interpretations. Because if you don't have discussions, all you do is interpret. So if it's not that, then it's you just take commands and you do as you're told. I prefer discussions. But I guess that goes back to that. So, if there were those in reference to Sapphire who decided on their own to not speak with me in truth, knowing well, what is being welcome? Or if you contacted people in Texas and stirred up needless drama, why would I bother? Because if you stir up needless drama, and I'm genuinely there to actually get to know people, what would ever be wanted in a positive way? Common sense to those types. 10 Commandments are so damn important. It's the facts. So, those types that stirred up needless drama, playing needless games that I did not consent to at all. Because I would not consent to that. So then there's that. Regarding that Yahoo leak, as far as Yahoo Mail, supposedly. So according to whoever did that, you obviously didn't pay attention to the fact that I already was dealing with all the stuff that I was dealing with. What lack of common sense and lack of humanity in every capacity of. In my opinion. Because the proof realistically goes to 2020. Intentions. Actual intentions. So from the updating time frame of 2019 through 2022, actual truthful intentions. And so, as far as I've seen, there's not been anything other than that being an accurate title. Because why would it be otherwise? That would require a few factors. So just as I have, not been invited, I have made the attempts because there are certain specifics in comparison. Because it is a historical and spiritual rubbing regarding the spirit of the Medal of Honor. Award. But those types that don't see how it actually is only in certain regards. So instead of those types, assumptions, so in comparison to what would actually be required. So if my biological sister wished, in reference to that abomination of a wedding when she knew I was driving from Carrollton, Texas to Austin after she asked for my son and my daughter to be a ring bearer and a flower girl. Common sense as far as Mike having told her to go to my house for lingerie. Do you think you could pay attention to the details as to how far and if he chewed her out? As to that, that shows the length of time my biological sister has been that much of a spoiled, rotten, ignorant brat who hasn't done anything of value or worth with her existence because she thinks she's more important than she is. It's no different because common sense. So one time that my son and my daughter that I drove from Carrollton, Texas to that abomination of a wedding, anybody with common sense would know that age of a flower girl and a ring bearer is in elementary school as per usual. So, common sense. So those types, whether it's to those Millers, as far as those needless problems, as to the lack of common sense, the lack of courtesy in every capacity of. Because what is human decency to those types of people? I wouldn't know. That would require speaking with in genuine truth instead. Common sense. Doesn't fix or repair anything to not do things a certain way at all. And if there's not that discussion with, because of communication, then there's not that because of the requirements as to an actual starting point. And after all of the needless drama from such lengths in time, that lets you know what those types have been as to such assumptions. Because if it was just as simple as actually speaking with in genuine truth instead of what I dealt with, so, because honesty, part of the 10 Commandments. So you're not really New Jerseyan if you stir up needless drama. You're a Southerner or a Midwesterner because New Jerseyans don't stir up needless drama at all. Anybody that told you that doesn't know what a genuine, true New Jerseyan is. They only respond. A true New Jerseyan, genuinely true New Jerseyan, they only go all New Jersey when there have been so many individuals from the South and the Midwest who have stirred up so much needless drama that they have to respond. Otherwise, actual New Jerseyans don't stir up needless drama. They understand there's more important things in life than needless drama. So, not all. Some have needed to learn that. But the old school New Jerseyans, really old school. It's just how it is. And so if you want to actually have that in reality, well, that translates to etiquette and respect in comparison to the situations that have occurred, hypothetically. So, go to my website, www.susanmealing.com. Check out my journal blog and all that stuff. And you guys have a good day. Oh, like and share my official YouTube video for my official YouTube channel. You can use my link through my website, www.susanmealing.com. Maybe soon I can actually start having reasons to be in a good mood instead, with the review aspects that I've had to do and having to go as deep as. So, 2019 to 2022. So it's just been that length of time of reviewing the aspects of, because of the time frame after my head injury on Palm Sunday in 2000. Wouldn't have to do it though if those situations had actually been truthful. So as many, like that Rickle pick problem, 10 Commandments. Was I accurate to rebuke such? I'm going to guesstimate. I am. May 10th, 2022.